Well, hey guys, I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, home of global safety and survival, and we're off this weekend at the cabin again, and we're here to answer one of your questions. Tim, how do you go number one and number two at an off-grid cabin? You're not hooked up to the city sewer system, you're not hooked up to the water system, you're off-grid, so how do you make that happen? No, we're not out digging holes in the woods, but it's an option, but that's not what we normally do. Let's get started and I'll show you how we take care of business. All right, so I'll start right out by telling you that we do compost, and we do the composting toilets, and this is a bag of sawdust I get from a local cabinet shop, and this is pelletized bedding material, and you see it used a lot for horse stalls. Now this stuff works pretty well, and we do utilize it, just not as much as our other two options, but it's basically little pellets of sawdust, and once it comes in contact with moisture, it falls apart and turns into very fine sawdust. The difference between this and this is, this has like a little bit of a minty fragrance to it, very light, but it has a little cover odor to it, where wood chips is just wood chips, and it does a fine job. I do use one other, but I don't have the bag here, and that is peat moss. And let's just have a little discussion about the different options when it comes to your material that you're going to use to compost with. So peat moss is by far my favorite. It does the best job. There is absolutely no odors, no smells. It does a great job at sucking up all of the moisture, and it turns to true compost a lot faster than the other materials do. The downside to peat moss is it's very dusty, and people do a lot of different stuff to cut down on the dust, but whenever you add moisture to something that you're trying to absorb moisture with, of course you're taking away some of those properties. Sawdust is what a lot of people use. It's readily available. Most of the time you can find it for free, and it does a great job. But every once in a while, and I don't know if it's in my head, but I feel like I get a little bit of an odor from the composting toilet if I'm using straight sawdust. But a lot of that depends on what sawdust you're using. I have found that this pine, and this is all pine that was left over from when I redid the walls, or when I made the boards that cover the walls on the inside of the cabin. I have found that the pine works pretty daggone well. I haven't had any issues with that at all. And then this pelletized blend. So the pros to the sawdust is it's free. The bad is every once in a while I think I might smell a little bit of urine smell. All right, so the pelletized bedding material, it is the most expensive of all of the other options, which is the drawback. It's very convenient because it's not powdery, it doesn't create a mess, and it does have just a trace, kind of a minty, cloverish kind of odor to it, which is not off at all. I mean, I'm very sensitive to odors, and I find it pleasant. So that's the good side about it, and you'll see how I use the different ones in different applications as we go along. Let's move into the cabin and let's show you how we utilize this stuff. Okay guys, so we've moved inside the cabin now, and this is my compost toilet contraption. This was a DIY project that I did. It's just a plywood box with a divider in the center, and it holds two buckets. This bucket is for your medium. Right now I'm using that horse stall medium in there, the pelletized stuff, and that's what I prefer to use when we're truck camping, or when I'm actually using it in the cabin. Now on the other side is a 5-gallon bucket. That's what we would be going to the bathroom in. Normally if you were going to use that for number 2, we would have some medium on the bottom. You go number 2, and you cover it with the medium and you're good to go. It starts breaking it down almost immediately. Right now, we're just using this as a urine bucket. So in the middle of the night when you have to go to the bathroom, I'll put a little bit of water in here before we go to bed, and a little bit of this stuff that's made for RVs, for going in the holding tanks, the black water tanks, and put just a cap full of that in there, and it makes the water, and when you go to the bathroom, just smells like orange. It's a very light odor, and you keep from having any urine smells in the cabin at all. And then in the morning you can just take that out and dispose of it. The trees love the stuff, so we don't have any trouble getting rid of that. So the tops of these things, this side is just a standard toilet with a lid, and it's just a kind of a wooden model that I found somewhere. And the other side just has a little knob on it where you can pick it up and get to the medium. And I keep the toilet paper on a rack completely separate so you can set it wherever you're comfortable. And we have a small trash can with our composting toilets that we keep some bags in. I like to use the paper sandwich bags inside of that. And what we do is we use this to dispose of our toilet paper, and then that just gets burned. Yes, it can go into compost toilet without any issue at all, but I have found that that's the last thing to break down and turn to compost is the toilet paper. So to try to avoid as much of that as possible, if something gets in there, it's not a big deal. It's not a problem at all. It'll turn to compost. And I'll let mine go in compost for a lot longer than what a lot of people say you have to anyway. So it's all good. But it's just as easy to burn that toilet paper and dispose of it immediately, and I just feel better about doing it that way. So that's our primary means of going to the bathroom inside the cabin. We do a homemade composting toilet, and no, I don't get any smells and I don't get any issues. When the buckets are full, we put a lid on them. They set out behind the wood pile. 2 years later, you got compost to use around your bushes and around your trees. No issues at all. Looks like pure dirt. All right, option number 2. This is the luggable loo. Yes, I prefer it over some of the cheaper brands where you just snap a top onto a 5-gallon bucket. I found that the bucket that's made for this, it's made that way for a reason. And if you're truck camping or whatever, if you set this bucket inside of a milk crate, it makes it a lot more stable when you're using it in your small outhouse or shower tent systems. And you don't have to worry about it falling over in the back of the truck unless you're really getting pretty aggressive with your driving. Now inside the bucket we keep several different things, and let me just show you what we do, because this is our backup to our composting toilet if for some reason we didn't want to use that at the cabin. But this is mainly for when we're truck and tent camping. So inside of it, on the very bottom, I have several quart bags of the animal stall pelletized bedding material. That's what we use to put in the bottom of these bags that are made for the to fit the luggable loo, and I keep 2 or 3 of those in there. So we put the bag on, then we snap the top on, then I use the bedding material inside of it. You go to the bathroom, you cover it with more of the bedding material, and then when you're done, you zip the bag up and you can dispose of that. I also keep a couple of rolls of toilet paper in there, and that's where that lives for utilizing space. I keep a couple of these basic cleaning towels in there just for freshening up and cleaning up. The other product that I have found that I like is either the Walmart brand or this brand of, it's like a baby wipe. These are called Dude Wipes. I like the unscented stuff. All of that scents and lotions and stuff just drive me nuts. So I try to go with the stuff that's fragrance free. And the other thing is a container of the Clorox wipes, and I just use those to wipe up the actual toilet seat and the lid when we're all done. All that gets snapped together, has a nice handle on top of it, and like I said, with the addition of a milk crate, that makes a great option as a backup here at the cabin and for truck and tent camping. So that's option number 2. Let's go look at our third option. Okay, and here is my third system for going to the bathroom at the cabin, and honestly it's the one that I use the most. This is in an outhouse that is out behind the cabin. The top is very well ventilated, and this time it's just a single box with a regular toilet lid on top of it with a 5-gallon bucket on the inside. I utilize the sawdust. We do everything the exact same. It's just that this is completely outside of the cabin, and it's in an outhouse that you don't have to dig a hole, and it's reusable and easy to keep clean, and the whole 9 yards. So this is where I actually prefer to come and take care of business, and it's by far the simplest system for an off-grid cabin as far as going to the bathroom. I use the exact same methods and the same materials out here as I described in the cabin. The only thing that I would add to the cabin video is I didn't discuss an option for disposing of urine other than the bucket. When I'm in the truck or sometimes even at the cabin, I have found that trying to urinate in a small top bottle is difficult at best. Even the Gatorade bottles just don't seem to work well for me. I have found that the 1.5 quart size Nalgene bottles is the way to go. Easy to clean, easy to utilize, and with me getting a larger size bottle than what I normally use on the trail, there's no chance of me getting that mixed up with any of my other bottles that I utilize for drinking. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there. Well, composting is great, Tim, you say, but where am I supposed to keep all of that compost material? Well, here I buy these Commander series totes. I found that they're pretty heavy duty and they hold up well to the elements around here. This large one here, when I get in my peat moss, it comes very compressed in a bag. I leave about half of it compressed, the other half I break open and have it ready to utilize, fill up my buckets, and it stays stored in this tote, and it just slides underneath the cabin, and that's where it lives until I need to refill my buckets. The horse pellets, that can stay in the bag, and the sawdust, I get that in these large, like 6 or 8 mil 55-gallon drum liners, or I use a 55-gallon drum. My only problem with sawdust is if you go to most sawmills or plane mills that have this stuff, they want to give it away by a minimum of the truckload. You go in there and tell them that you want a 55-gallon drum full, and they look at you like you're nuts, and they're like, yeah, whatever, go scoop you up some. So you'll just have to play that by ear as far as it, you have an availability for it, but it's out there and they're more than happy to give it away. But this is how I store all of it. These plastic totes work out very well. All right, guys, well, there you go. That's the way you take care of number 1 and number 2 in an off-grid situation. Whether you're in a camper, truck camping, overlanding, off-grid cabin, or you know what, even if your power goes off at your house, you lose the ability to have running water because you're on well and septic tank, or maybe you have a crisis with your city mains and all of a sudden the flushing method just doesn't work anymore. I think you'd find having at least one of these portable bathroom methods around here, whether you make your own or buy the Lovable or a cheaper one of the knockoff brands, whatever, to get you through an emergency. A little bit of that bedding material will go a long way, and plastic bags are cheap, and the nice thing about it is When you're done with it, worst case scenario, you can take it and just throw it in a dumpster somewhere or throw it in your regular trash pickup. I mean, we pick up our animal feces and stuff when we walk and put it in plastic bags and throw that in the trash. So why couldn't you do your own if you were hard pressed and in an emergency? I think if you lived in a neighborhood, the option of doing that versus everybody going out and digging cat holes in their backyards or the courtyards makes a lot more sense. But just something for you to think about, just some options, some different things that you can do that you can utilize both at your house, your homestead, your travels, or even if you're a worldwide traveler. You know, it's different things you can think about different ways of taking care of sanitation. It's amazing if you've ever done any traveling at all, the places in the world that still to this day, they got to go to the bathroom. They just go over there and squat and they take care of business, and it's right there on top of the street. And then that runoff is going everywhere. And I won't even get into all of the issues that causes. That's a totally different subject. But the point is this: it doesn't take a whole lot of effort that in the midst of an emergency that you can't be prepared to at least have a method of going to the bathroom for a significant amount of time, not having to deal with odors and not having to deal with poor hygiene. Just make sure you wash your hands good when you're done. All of these systems that I utilize, we use some wet wipes, we utilize some Clorox wipes, we have hand sanitizer, but my favorite method of all is just good old soap and water, washing your hands good when you're finished going to the bathroom and doing a light wipe down of that system and having it prepared and ready for the next time you have to go. I hope this helps and answers a few questions. Once again, I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, home of global safety and survival. Back here at the off-grid cabin, just sharing a little bit of what I've learned along the way. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, God bless.